Good morning, Warehouse family. Who'd have thought a few weeks ago we'd be in this situation today, that we'd be meeting online instead of in person? Just hope that you enjoy our time together. We're trying to do the best we can to stay in touch with everyone, try to keep everyone up to what's going on. As soon as we have updated information, we'll let you know what's happening. But I hope you enjoy the message today and the worship today, and I look forward to when we all can be back together. I'll talk to you very soon.
Good morning, family. I just wanted to talk to you real quick about a few vital announcements, particularly as it pertains to giving, because I know some of you guys have expressed concerns about that. So, but I want to assure you that we still have ways to be able to do that, even though we're not meeting in our physical building. So, first, there's three distinct ways that you can give. All right. The first would be to download our Warehouse Church app if you don't already use it. And there's a giving section, and all you got to do is tie in your debit card or credit card, and you can do it within a few clicks. And an easy way to go there, as well as if you go to our website at vcfleesburg.com, there is a section for giving, which will also allow you to go through the Subsplash app that I just mentioned. Or you can also go through PayPal if you're more comfortable with that. The third option is just the old snail mail. You can, if you're not comfortable with any of the online stuff, you can mail us a check, make it out to the Warehouse Church or Vineyard Christian Fellowship of Leesburg. And the address is 1549 East Main Street, Leesburg, Florida, 34748. If you have any questions about or concerns about how to do any of that, or if you're uncomfortable with the online process, I'm going to put a few links here with after this announcement video with some how-to videos that I've uploaded to YouTube. That'll get you going. You can also try to call the office if we're here, and we'll try to help you with that. So as you have guessed, the major announcements is that we are not meeting on Sunday mornings or our Wednesday night programs. However, we are working, and we're thinking about ways to still connect virtually while maintaining that community that we love and that family aspect. So I look forward to that. Wednesday nights, like I said, is canceled or postponed at the moment, but look in the next week or two for an announcement of how we can connect. And with that, we're going to begin our worship, and have a great morning.
I believe you are. through every breath I take. Yeah, I believe that you are provider. Oh, and you are protector. You are the one I love. Yeah, I believe through every blessing, through every promise, through every breath I take. Yeah, I believe that you are provider. Lord, you are protector. You are the one I love. Yeah, I believe you are the way, the truth, the life. Yeah, I believe you are the way, the truth, the life. I believe you are. I believe you are. I believe you are. Set my eyes on you. It's a new horizon, and I'm set on you. And you meet me here today. Mercies that I knew. All my fears and doubts, they can all come to, because they can't stay long when I'm here with you. It's a new horizon, and I'm set on you. And you meet me here today. Mercies that I knew. Oh, yeah. All my fears and doubts, they can all come to, because they can't stay long when I'm here with you. It's a new horizon, and I'm set on you. And you meet me here today. Mercies that I knew. Oh yeah. All my fears and doubts, they can all come to, because they can't stay long when I believe you are the way, the truth, the life, the life. I believe you are. Yeah, you are the way, the truth. I believe in you, the life. It's a new horizon. It's a new horizon, and I'm set on you. And you meet me here today. The mercies that I knew. Oh yeah. All my fears and doubts, they can all come to, because they can't stay long when I'm here with you. It's a new horizon, and I'm set on you. And you meet me here today with mercies that I knew. Yeah, all my fears and doubts, they can all come to, because they can't stay long when I believe you are the way, the truth, and the life. The life. I believe you are the way, the truth, the life. I believe you are the way, Let's take a moment to worship in spirit and in truth. More love. More love. More power. More of you in my life. Yeah. More love. More power. More of you in my life. More love, more power, more of you in my life. More love, more power, more of you. I will worship you. I will worship you in all of my heart. I will worship you with all of my mind. I will worship you with all of my strength. You are my Lord. You are my Lord. More love. More love. More power. More of you in my life. Every day, Lord, more love, more power, more of you in my life. Sing that again, more love, more power, more of you in my life. More love, more power, more of you. I will seek your face. I will seek your face with all of my heart. I will seek your face with all of my strength. And I will seek your face with all of my strength. You are my Lord. You are my Lord. You are my Lord. I will seek your face. I will seek your face with all of my heart. I will seek your face with all of my mind. I will seek your face with all of my strength. You are my Lord. You are my Lord. Let's worship him on the instruments. I will worship you. worship you.
I will worship you with all of my heart.
Yes, Lord.
I will worship you with all of my mind. I will worship you with all of my strength. You are my Lord. You are my Lord.
You are my Lord.
You are my Lord. You are my
Thank you, Lord. We magnify your name. Thank you for your love today.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. When I had felt no breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Lord, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, running after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Thank you, Lord. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming. Let's say that again. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found. It leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. Lord, you're so welcome here today. Our praise is for you. You're the one we love. You're the one we adore. We're here for you, Lord. Spirit of the living God, break in. Come shake these walls like a mighty rushing wind. I've seen a glimpse of your great power. I found a hope, it ignites me like fire. Jesus, you're all my heart longs for. Jesus, your presence, I need you more. Spirit of the living God, have your way. I'm longing for your presence to fully invade. I felt a love that took away death's sting. I will pour my love on the King above all kings. Jesus, you're all my heart longs for. Jesus, your presence, I need you more. Jesus, you're all my heart longs for. Jesus, your presence, I need you more. Oh, Spirit, come, break in. Oh, Spirit, come, break in. Fill this place, God. Oh, Spirit, come, break in. breaking. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Spirit breaking. Hallelujah. 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 Spirit breaking. Jesus. Jesus. You're all my heart longs for. Yes, it does. Jesus, your presence, I need you more. Jesus, you're all my heart longs for. Jesus, your presence, I need you. Oh Spirit, come, break in, have your way, God. Oh Spirit, come, break in, do what you want to do. Oh Spirit, come, break in. We worship you, Lord, we worship you, Lord. Oh Spirit, come, break in. Hallelujah. Jesus, you're all my heart longs for. Jesus,
Your presence, I need you more. Jesus, you're all my heart longs for. Jesus, your presence, I need you more.
Jesus,
Jesus, you're all my heart longs for. Jesus, your presence, I need you more. Jesus, you're my heart longs for. Jesus, your presence, I need you more.
So, I am a why guy. And what I mean by that is whenever things happen, be it at work or in life in general, I like to know the why. I don't have a problem following an order, but give me the whole picture so that I can follow your train of thought. All right, so there's a purpose behind the process. Does that make sense? Okay, so in our Christian walk, what I try to find out is what is the bigger reason, what is the bigger why as to why are we actually going through, and then you fill in your blank of your own situation, be it work, be it church, be it school, whatever the case may be. In times past, I've talked about going through things where you go through it to add different tools to your toolbox. So that, is it you're going through this thing to gain wisdom? Or is it to gain humility or patience, if you dare, pray for that. But you go through things to gain those tools within your toolbox. And those may be true, but how many tools can one person attain and still be able to effectively use all of them? I mean, you may have 10,000 tools in your garage, but if you don't use them regularly, your proficiency with them will diminish. So I had to start thinking, when we go through all this stuff, is it just to add tools to the toolbox? The answer is no. Touch, go ahead with Luke 11:2. The answer is actually found in the Lord's Prayer. And he said unto them, when you pray, say, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. There's the answer. Thy will be done. Okay, you don't even have to read past that. But the answer to that, the things that you're going through, is so that His will be done. Now, if you wrap your head around that just a minute, you don't hear a lot about what that's going to entail. When you get saved, oftentimes we're painted pictures of rainbows and unicorns and peaches and cream and happy people skipping through fields of clover. But all too often, fulfilling the will of God doesn't look like that. It's oftentimes quite the opposite of that. So when we go through all this stuff, yes, it's there to add the tools to your toolbox, but those tools are there for the ultimate prize to fulfill the will of God. Okay? When you became a Christian, you didn't sign up for this ride for your will to be done. You just effectively became a pawn for your Creator to attain His will. All right? So, when you ask God to do something in you or for you, wheels are set in motion. A process begins. I was telling Leslie earlier, this whole message started November 17th of last year. Tim was up here playing. I love listening to Tim play. But for me, when Tim really hits things out of the park, it's not when he's playing and singing. It's when he just starts talking. Because things come out of his mouth, and I'm like, wow, write that down. Because things just hit home like that for me. November 17th, Tim was doing what he does, and he said, when you make your request, it might not look like anything is happening, but it doesn't mean that it isn't happening. If we could see the happenings in the spirit realm, it would keep you moving. That hit me like a ton of bricks. Because in that short little statement, it pointed out just how weak my faith and my stick-to-itiveness really was. Because it's great to say, God, your will be done. God, your will be done. Until the crap hits the fan. And then you become short-sighted, very nearsighted, and you forget, oh yeah, what was the purpose behind this? Because there is a purpose behind this process. All right? Now that we know that the purpose behind the process is ultimately to fulfill His will, we have to make sure that we see this process through to the very bitter end. Now keep in mind, that's usually not going to end up in rainbows and unicorns. That's usually going to end up with blood and guts and manure on the floor. Okay, let's be real. That's really what that's going to look like. Touch, go ahead with Philippians 1:6. Being confident in this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Now see, here's the part that's I want to hit home with, to the completion part. It didn't talk about, when he started this work. Remember, you prayed for the Lord to do this or do that for you or through you. He is willing to carry that through to its perfect completion. Through you. Now, the part of that has to be that you have to be willing to stick with it and ultimately finish what you asked God to do for you and through you, including the blood and guts and manure on the floor. God is willing to carry it out to completion in its fullness. The part where we get sideways and we lose our way is when things stop being easy. It's very easy to get up in the morning, get dressed, put on your fancy clothes, come to church, put on a good face when it's easy. What about when the toilet paper runs out? What about when you can't get rice or beans or chicken or cleaning supplies, basic necessities of life? What about that? Is that when you pull the plug and say, I've had enough, I'm done with this thing that I've asked about, I'm bailing out, I'm done, because this ain't fun anymore? Because ultimately, the purpose behind the process is to achieve God's will, not your will. Touch. You can go ahead with the next one. James 1:2-4. I use this one a lot for a lot of different reasons, but there's a purpose behind it. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. Because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Again, we talked about completion in the scripture before. In this particular scripture, it says, let perseverance finish. All these things come together to running your course and finishing that race. It doesn't say when your muscles are hurt and you have a headache, or when you have a hangnail, or when you got in a fight with your husband or your wife, that it's okay to check out for a few days. None of that says that. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it says you run that course, you finish that race, so that these things come to fruition in its completion. What if you were watching a movie and 60 seconds before the end of the movie, it stopped? There was nothing past that. You would never know if the bad guy got arrested. You wouldn't know if the two people got together, got married, and lived happily ever after. You wouldn't know any of it. What about, during ball season, what if all of a sudden in the last 60 seconds of the game, they quit broadcasting? You never got to see the end of the game. What if you didn't get to see that thing come to its fulfillment? How would you feel about that? For me, kind of like the everything preceding that didn't matter. Because I didn't get to see, how does this thing end? What if you're in the middle of remodeling your home, and you got 1 day left. The crews are going to come one last day, button everything up, put your countertops in, everything's going to be done in 1 day. But they don't show up. In your eyes, the entire rest of that job, what did I just destroy my house for? Because I didn't get it finished. I'm guessing God feels about the same way when we bail on something we asked Him to do for us. Because when we ask God to do something, when His will starts to be fulfilled, those wheels are moving. The process is in process. But when we bail, it's no different for Him than for us in those three simple little explanations. When you pray for something, have the faith to set the wheels in motion to receive what you have asked for. See that thing to its completion. I listened to Steve Harvey some time back, and he was telling a story when he was a teenager. He had an old car. It was broke down in the driveway up on blocks, and he had tried everything he could think of to get this car fixed. He could not get it going. So he decided, I'm done with that. I'm getting a new car, or another car, a different car. So he told his mom, Mom, I'm getting a different car. The mom's response was, but you got a car in the driveway. And that's all she said. The next week he got paid. He come back, he told his mom, Mom, I'm getting a different car. Mom said, but you got a car in the driveway. Week after week after week on payday, Steve would go to his mom and say, Mom, I'm going to get a different car. And every week, his mom gave him the same answer. But you got a car in the driveway. So finally, Steve, trying to figure out what his mom was saying, couldn't figure it out, and finally asked his mom, Mom, why do you keep saying the same thing when I tell you, Mom, I'm getting a different car? Why do you always say, but you got a car in the driveway? Steve's mom looked at him and said, because, son, you haven't made room for the new car. You're still holding on to something taking the place of what you're trying to replace. There's no room for what you're asking for because something's already there. Parallel this with me now. You ask God to do these things. You put these wheels in motion. But have you gotten rid of the old car yet? Have you made room for that thing to come to fruition? Because you can't hold on to one and grab the next one. You can't steal second with your feet on first. Right? Hope is praying for rain during a drought. Faith is carrying the umbrella. Kind of like Noah. Okay? There's a purpose for your process. One thing builds on another, builds on another, builds on another. Steve's mom said what she said to Steve for a reason. Because ultimately, he had to do step one before he could ever attain step two. He had to remove the old to make room for the new. There was a purpose for her process. We talk about the story of creation. We're not going to go through all the scriptures, but you know that in 6 days, on day one, something happened. Day 2 built on day 1. Day 3 built on day 2. Day 4 built on day 3. So on and so on and so forth. There was a process. Okay? There's also a purpose behind that process. Same with us. God knew that He can't have animals before He has the habitat. Otherwise, you got fish floating around in the air and not knowing what they're supposed to be doing, right? There was a purpose for the process. There was an order of how things should be done. Many years back, I coached football. And we would design the structure of the practice in an order for a reason, in order to gain certain things in different parts of the practice. There was a process to the practice, and there was a purpose behind the process. I was an offensive and defensive line coach. When we went to practice after warm-ups, we had what we called individual time. When we did individual time, I took all of my linemen across the field to a retention pond. It was dry, sugar sand. But it was so deep that when we were in it, if you were up on regular grade, you could not see our heads. It was that deep. Okay? I took them there because it was all sugar sand. And it's hard to move and this, that, and the other. But what I would do is, whatever plays we were practicing that day, teach them the plays, then I would go to the top to normal grade. I would leave them in the bottom. I would call the play, and they would run the play by sprinting, whatever their blocking techniques were, up that hill in the sugar sand to the top. Then they would walk back down, set up again, and we repeat that process over and over and over. I did that, one, because in sugar sand, everything's slow motion. You're not going to be moving at breakneck speed. I needed them to move in slow motion until they learned what they were doing. I also did it because it's hard to move in sugar sand. And I was achieving some conditioning, and I was wearing them out for what was coming in phase 2. There's a process. Phase 2 was team practice. The things that we just practiced in slow motion as individuals, we all came together as a team and ran those same plays with the whole team. Now, I did this because I knew that after part 1, they were going to be tired physically. Their legs were going to be tired. But I needed to know that even though they were tired, can they still concentrate on the important thing? Can they still do their blocking techniques even when they're tired? Can they keep their concentration on the things that's important even when they didn't want to do it? Can you see the parallel here? In the middle of your scenario, can you still keep your mind on the thing that's important? That being carrying out the will of God, not the will of Leslie. So after all of that, we had the normal team conditioning, but my linemen knew that we had extra opportunities for improvement after all that was done. So after the team conditioning, all my linemen would get together, and there was a piece of railroad rail, 2 of them actually. They were about this long, with a piece of guy wire. They had to get in it, and they had to drag it, sprinting distances. In the beginning, they weren't long. At the end of the season, they were long. I did that because I knew they'd be tired from the first thing. Doing what we did second with the team was going to make them more tired. When I got to the third part, I needed to know, could I push them past their whininess and their comfort zone to trust me enough to make them go the extra mile and finish successfully. I needed to know that. And some, I will tell you, within a week I knew they were not going to be there long. At the end of all that, when we got into the games, I can honestly say they made fun of the people who were opposing them. Because once they started seeing the purpose behind the process come to fruition, they would come to the sidelines laughing, saying, "Coach, they're sissies. They can't take what we're giving them." But they started seeing all the work that they had done, the fruits of their labor. Even to the point that as we got later in the season and they really bought into the whole thing, keep your eye on the prize, they'd laugh at me. They're like, "Coach, this is too easy. Is this all you got for us today?" Now, that didn't last long, I promise you that. But they had bought into it so much that they knew what we were doing was for a purpose. I will tell you that for several years I was hoarse because I coached at them so hard, because I believed in them so much that somebody had to tell them through their agony, "I believe in you, and you can do it, and you will do it." Because ultimately, if I didn't believe in them, certainly nobody else was going to. And all they hear from me is, "You can do it, you're going to do it, you will succeed." I would always have to tell them, when you're dragging that rail, it's miserable. It is miserable. I had to do it when I was in high school. But the thing I had to remember is when you're in the middle of that nonsense and that rail falls over and it's not sliding on the ground, it's plowing cornrows, you keep your head up and you look to the finish line. Because when you can see that finish line, it gets closer with every step. When your head's down and you're just sucking air and you're wanting to die in the middle of this, the finish line is forever away and you will quit. Bring this around to our church. Pick any scenario within the church, within our nation right now. You bury your head in the sand and you don't look for that finish line. You don't keep your mind on the prize, on the purpose behind the process. You will quit. There's no question. Because you can't take it alone. Okay? There's a purpose behind the process. We're going to talk about 3 Hebrew children. So just hold on for this ride. We're going to stop in, bounce in here. DJ'd be so proud of me for using this. We're going to bounce along here. Just try to stay with me, touch work, because I'm going to stop and go. The decree has already went out. Some tattletales told the king, these three guys aren't doing it. Bring them to me. So they did. Daniel chapter 3, verse 13. Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king. Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Now when you hear the sound of the horn, flute," I don't know what that one is, that one, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, "if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" Now, if you are one of these three guys, and the king, maybe it's your boss, says you're going to do this, or you're going to die, or you're going to lose a job, or you're going to fill in the blank. At that point, are you absolutely certain of the process? Let's see. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, "King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it. And if he will deliver us from your majesty's hand." That's a pretty bold thing to say to a man with supreme power. Then they go on to say, "But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty," had to throw in a little respect there, "that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude toward them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, because just instant inferno wasn't enough, and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. Wrap your head around what's happening here. They just defied the king. Said, "We're not going to do it. And our God can deliver us. But even if he doesn't, we're still not going to bow to your idols." That is supreme confidence in the purpose behind the process. I won't ask you to say it out loud, but could you do that? So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. Think about that instant. You feel the heat. It's hotter than it is in here right now. The king's command was so urgent and the furnace so hot that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. I like painting pictures. Okay? So this is a for real thing. This is something that is physically happening. Picture somebody tying your wrists, your arms, where you cannot defend yourself. You have no control over yourself at all. And somebody picks you up and throws you into a fire knowing you can't do anything about it. You better be sure of the purpose behind your process at that point. So in the middle of all this, something really cool happens. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leapt to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, "Weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire?" They replied, "Certainly, your majesty." He said, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire, and the satraps, ropes, governors and royal advisors crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair of their head singed. I can appreciate that. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of the fire on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, see, in an instant, the purpose behind the process happened. In an instant. Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces and their houses be turned into piles of rubble, for no other God can save in this way." That was a real-time thing. And when they face something like that, you have to know the purpose behind your process. We may not face the fiery furnace today, but it may look a lot different. Do you think they knew the purpose behind their process? The instant when the soldiers came and took hold of them and started tying them up, do you think they knew the process? Do you think they knew the purpose behind the process? While they were watching the furnace be heated up 7 times hotter, do you think they started questioning the purpose behind the process? Because I can tell you at some point the humanity in me would have started questioning. Because I'm guessing from where they were standing, they could probably feel some of that heat. It's not going to be like Florida. It's hot. As they were approaching the furnace and they felt that heat beating against their face, do you think they questioned the process? When they felt the soldiers grab them and throw them into the furnace where they landed, and they realized, we're inside the furnace, do you think they questioned the purpose behind their process? My answer to you, for them, I will say no. Because they had ample time way before that to say, I'm out. I'm not in for that. I want the rainbows and unicorns. I want the fairy tale ending. This is not what I signed up for. I didn't sign up. I didn't want the blood and guts and manure on the floor. And I definitely didn't sign up to be burned to death. They signed up for the completion of the will of God. When we are in that scenario, can we see the purpose behind the process? Or do we just see the fire? When you read through that whole scripture, you have to understand that God did not save them from the fire. He saved the king and all of his subjects through the fire. Okay? God didn't save them from the fire. He saved them through the fire. And in so doing, made a believer of the king, where the king made a decree, there's only one real God that can do this. And if you do so much as speak against this person, you will die a miserable death. It was that impactful to see the come to fruition of the real atonement and the real completion of God's will. And it wasn't free of the fire. I dare say that he even said he took the strongest soldiers to bind them up. There's probably rope burns that probably could have been involved in that. I know my brother, when he did it to me, I ended up with scars on my arms. I mean, let's be honest here, right? We must find the purpose behind the process. I want to read you this little devotional, and I promise you I'm coming to the end. This devotional's title is called Through. It says, we all go through difficult things in life, and oftentimes they are the very circumstances, challenges, and situations that help us become people who know how to overcome adversity. We do not grow or become strong during life's good times. We grow when we press through difficulties without giving up. Remember that whole completion and to the finish? Many times we think the phrase, I'm going through something. I mean, most religious people have said this. Oh, brother, I'm praying for you. I know you're going through something. Many times we think that phrase, I'm going through something, is bad news. But if we view it properly, we realize going through is good. It means we are not stuck. We may be facing adversity, but at least we are moving forward. Touch, go ahead with that, that last scripture. It ends with Isaiah 43:2. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, we just talked about the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. If we can keep our eyes on the purpose behind the process, it's not going to be easy. Whoever painted that rainbows and unicorns thing he didn't live my life. I mean, this stuff is more like where I'm at. Folks, we got to finish the process. Back in the day when I loved being in the weight room, there was an old statement that said, no pain, no gain. In the church, I made it a little more churchy. Go ahead. Rarely is there evidence of a growing without the presence of a groaning. That may be the only thing you remember right there. Rarely is there the evidence of a growing in you, in a church, whatever, without the presence of a groaning, because usually it's painful. Folks, God bless you. Be safe. Have a purposeful week.